So
Okay.
we're gonna start with squats.
Okay.
So first of all, when we talk about core, we're not just talking about abdominals, we're talking about a lot of hip muscles are really important for runners. Squats are an exercise that pretty much get everything from abs down. So Ramsay is gonna demonstrate here. What you wanna think about is having weight distributed across your feet normally, front and back. And I'll get him to do a squat, and he's sinking his hips back and his shoulders coming forward. That's the only thing. If you can see, his knees are going right over top of his feet, straight ahead. Good. And I'm just getting him turned to the side. Yeah, perfect. So the other thing you just want to watch about your lower back is making sure that you're not arching your back too much. But if you try to keep your chest up too much, then you might be actually arching your low back too much, which is not what we want. So you want to have what's called a neutral spine position with your low back. Okay, and just before we try that, we're going to do a single leg squat as well. So I need to sit that way. So single leg squat, pretty much the same position. You're thinking about your knee tracking over your foot. Again, try to think about having weight in your heel and the front of your foot, and you're getting your hips back. And this part, the challenge with the single leg squat is trying to keep your pelvis level as well. So trying not to let one side drop.
I'll show you this is wrong. I'm going to drop that way.
Good. I don't know if you guys can see.
You can see that. I'm going to try and keep it level like that.
So sometimes if this is a new exercise, it's probably good to do in front of a mirror to start, because then you can actually see if you're twisting or not. But once you get better at it, it's better to practice it without a mirror, because then you're kind of more feeling kind of how it feels. Is a good idea.
How low should you go on the one leg?
Well, you can go as low as you want, as long as you're controlling, you're not letting your pelvis drop, or you're not letting your knee collapse inwards. So sometimes it's actually better not to go as low, but to actually control the movement.
So if I go any lower than this, then I'm going to be dropping my shoulders. So that's about as low as I can go before I start to move through my back.
Also, depending on your ankle flexibility, that might restrict your movement too. Okay, so why don't we try it now? Exercises for runners, when we're talking about core, you don't really need any extra kind of load. A lot of it is about training the right movement patterns and training the right kind of muscle activation, not necessarily trying to load it up with a huge amount of weight. So the thing about all these is you don't need to worry, it's not going to make you tired, and that it shouldn't be detrimental to your running in any way.
And the other thing in terms of repetitions for these, I think for all of them that are, I mean, we've got some that are for time and some for repetitions. It's easy enough to start with. If you were to do all these exercises, just 10 of each, and if it's a one-sided thing, do 10 on the left, 10 on the right. If you just did all of them through as one set of 10 of each, that's a good start. If you wanted to spend more time, you could do multiple sets, but even just going through and doing one set, it may take you 5-10 minutes. But that in itself is a really good program just to get you working, strengthening, and getting some better movement in your hips. So what we're going to do is, this is a lunge to a single leg stance. So Allison's going to demonstrate here in a lunge position, and then she's going to come forward and bring her knee tall. And what you really want to focus on, again, is that pelvis nice and level. So level there, and then when she comes up, make sure that when she's bringing her knee up, she's not raising this hip as well, just raising the knee. And then on this rep, I'll get you to do it wrong. Hiking up to there. Yeah? Okay? Yeah. Sound effects? All right. And then again, the feet are staying in line as she does the lunge. And she's staying tall through her trunk. Her shoulders are pretty much staying over her hips. Maybe just turn. Her shoulders are pretty much staying over her hips, maybe coming slightly forward. But what you want to avoid is arching the back as you come into the lunge, or really leaning forward with the shoulders. So do an arch back here. Yeah. And then the other thing you want to avoid, yeah. And then the other thing is, you don't want to lean forward a lot that way either as you do it. Okay?
Okay,
All right.
let's try it. Next, we're going to show a hip flexor stretch. Your hip flexors are a pretty big muscle. Your iliopsoas is one of the main ones that's stretching here. And it actually attaches on your lower back and crosses your hip and attaches here. So in runners, it's a lot of people, especially runners, often really tight. And often when you have any low back pain or anything, it can be part of the problem. So this is a really good stretch. this is one version where you're sitting. What you want to make sure with this is that you can see his chest is nice and tall and upright, and he's almost doing a little bit of a tailbone tuck in his low back as well. And you can notice if you don't do the tuck and then you do the tuck, it'll increase, you'll feel a lot more pulling in through here. And that's just because the muscle attaches on your lower back, so if you don't do that tuck, you're not really getting the right stretch. You might also feel it down in your quads depending on how tight you are. But getting that little tuck is important. So this is probably the best position to do it in, but not as convenient as maybe a standing stretch. So one other version we're just going to show you, because this is the same muscle we're trying to stretch, but now standing, because you can do this one, you know, a little bit easier. But the key with this is the same thing as the nice upright body and the kind of tailbone tuck under here. So the common mistakes with this are people are leaning, arching the back or leaning forward. So keep your back upright, but then tuck the tailbone under. And you shouldn't feel any low back pain when you're doing this either. That's sometimes what we say. All right, and stretches you always want to hold about 30 seconds, ideally.
It's way more important. It's way more important that your form is correct and you're thinking about how you're doing it than getting the sensation of a stretch. That's a bit overrated, that sensation of getting a strong stretch, because often what you'll do is you'll compromise your back or hip position to try and get that feeling. So really think more important is the form than trying to get the good stretch sensation. Okay. All right. I like this one. This one's good because it works on your mid-back flexibility, and it's also gets you practicing being a model. So, Allison's going to walk over this way. What you're going to do is you're going to cross your arms in front of your chest, up nice and high, and then you're just going to walk towards the camera. And she did the common mistake, which is when you walk, you want to step forward with one leg, and you want to rotate towards that side. And then you go ahead and step.
That's not right.
No, that's right.
Oh, is that a mistake?
Good.
No, that's the right way.
Okay, and then she can go back the other way.
Oh.
See? And you can think too about driving. What you'll notice, turn around again. What you'll notice, go ahead, is if you think about twisting and kind of staying ahead of your feet a little bit, then it actually drives your feet stepping forward. And then you get that sense of, you know, John talking about the upper body driving the legs. When you do that, you'll get the sense, okay,
So you're twinning to
I can see how the upper body's driving my legs. So,
Does it matter which way you push on?
it doesn't matter which way. So,
No, so the key is you're twisting towards the leg that you're stepping forward.
towards the leg.
Towards the leg that's forward.
This is what you commonly see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and try that. Again, just another common error, you see this in runners too, is, go ahead and walk, is you'll see sometimes a bit of side bending going on. Or as you twist, you drop one shoulder down.
Keep it this way instead of like that way.
So you want to think it's pure corkscrew type rotation, not any type of drop side to side. And if you watch fatigued runners, you'll start to see sometimes they'll have one shoulder that drops down like that. So again, it's a good one to work on that. And you can even try it while you're running, like as a warm-up, and you run a lap or something like that, and try just crossing your arms, and getting that nice fluid sense of trunk rotation.
Okay, so one more exercise for mobility for the cow one. So we're gonna do 4 different versions here. So this is the cat. Hold this just for a second. So when you're doing this one, you want to think about tucking your head down and also doing the same kind of tailbone tuck. So you're trying to make like a nice C shape with your back. Usually I'll just tell people to hold for about 5 seconds because we're more doing a mobility for the joints. It's not really a muscle stretch. And then you're going to go the opposite way. Now with this way, you want to really think about softening through the upper back. That's where you want to focus. And with your head, you can see with Ramsay, he's not looking like right up to the ceiling. You want to kind of look like, I tell people usually like on the ground, a little bit in front of them, and keep that long. And then you go back the other way. So you can just move kind of back and forth. So tailbone tuck, and then this one you're softening, letting the chest kind of drop forward. So that's the cat cow. And then the next one we're going to do is going to be, what is this one called again? One? Wiggle. Oh yeah, this is a wiggle one. So for this one, he's kind of side bending. You can see like he's trying to bring this shoulder and hip together. And now he's going the other way. Can you stop? So he's lengthening through this side and bringing this side together. So it is kind of this motion that he's doing, but he's on all fours. So this is the wiggle cat, and then the last one is going to be doing a twist. So for this one, he's reaching underneath and really trying to think about moving, like his sternum is where the rotation is coming from. So like his upper back area, and just going side to side. And again, it's kind of about your hips here, you can see should stay relatively level, and we're trying to get the mobility here. So don't worry about how far you go. It's more about like kind of feeling it in this upper back area. And so for this exercise, you might do something where you might do like 5 repetitions of each of those. All right, we'll try that one. Okay, you guys have probably all done planks before, so we'll just make sure a few key, oh sorry.
Okay, so plank. So the keys with plank, the front plank, go ahead. Let's see how long I can explain it, see how long she can hold it. One really important thing is starting at the head position. You don't want to let your head drop. You want to think kind of tucking your chin in down, not letting it drop towards the floor, and don't look up either. So again, you're looking towards the ground of the floor, but you're not dropping your head that way. And that keeps the back a little flatter. The other thing too is through the hips, you want to make sure the hips are about in line with the shoulders here. So not letting them go up or go down. And then trying to be really flat through the mid-back. That's the other thing you see is people tend to arch through the mid-back to try and stabilize, trying to keep that flat. And again, you can hold this for as long as you want. Even a 10-second plank is good, is helpful, but you can work up to a minute or 2 minutes, or some guys set the world record at 12 hours. All right, side plank. So, face the camera, please. Okay, so side plank, what you're gonna do is your hips are gonna be forward again. So same thing as with the head position. This time, you wanna have the head back a little bit, and again, facing straight forward. So not looking down, not tilting it down, just nice and straight forward. Almost like if you were against the wall, the hips, the feet, hips, shoulders, head would all be in line. There's a few different modifications. You can lift up your top.
I was gonna show this, sorry.
This is an easier modification. Yeah, so there's not as much load. You can also do a harder modification where you lift the top leg. And again, with this one, you want to really, again, make sure the hip is staying nice and still.
So a lot of people think of this as an abdominal exercise, but especially the side plank, when you're doing that leg lift, and even if you're in this position, you should really feel it in your glute on the bottom side as well. So it's a really good exercise.
And it's really good to get awareness of what the center, like what a kind of neutral center is for your trunk.
And the more, the more you do it, like when you're balancing this position, it's hard at first to get the right foot position with your ankle, but the more you practice it, the stronger you're able to get in your glute and in your side, the more you can do. Like I wouldn't say if I do the side leg raise, but I do that, it's better to do both legs. And then as you get stronger, you can really add the leg raise, but I can really feel it in my glute when I do the leg raise. So when I
go ahead. So what?
Right position almost ready is a side leg raise. So this is a common exercise. It's actually probably not the most common one that I give runners people to do, but it's a common one that's given, and a lot of people do it wrong. So we wanted to make sure if you guys have seen it before, you're doing it right. So actually, can you face the camera? Thanks. So you're on your side. Your bottom leg can be bent a little bit, if you like. The important part for this is your gluteus medius. You want to feel it in kind of the back of your hip. Most of us, there's another muscle, tensor fasciae lata, which is just ahead, and if you're weak in your glute, this muscle will tend to take over, and then you're just kind of reinforcing bad habits of doing the exercise wrong. So what I usually tell people to do is to actually get their hip a little bit behind them. Even more. Thank you. And so you're almost thinking your big toe on the upper leg goes to the instep of your foot in front. So it's a little bit behind, but at the same time, you need to keep your pelvis forward. So he really probably needs to think about engaging his core to keep this level. And then as he raises up, go down again. So he's not going too high, and probably, again, the biggest mistake I see in the gym is people going like way up like that. And then if you watch here, he's actually like using kind of the side of his trunk, which is not really doing anything good anyways. So you want to keep the movement relatively small and controlled. And I'd even say get his hip back a little bit more, there. And so you can feel it right there when he's doing it. So other than going too high, the other mistake is that if you let this kind of collapse like that, then again you're going to be using more in the front. So it's a really finicky exercise where you can very easily be not getting any benefit if you kind of make one of those mistakes. So try that one.
Where am I supposed to feel? Like right here?
More back than that.
Here?
Yeah. No, like here,
This is
but not like here. So this one I originally actually learned. You've probably seen some sort of variations on this it's called Dying Bug. And when I was in physio school, I went to Arizona to do a placement with professional baseball players and football players. There was this one football player who used to do this for 5 minutes there's 3 exercises. He'd do each one for 5 minutes, and he'd have like 10-pound weights in his hands. So just keep that in mind, because I usually do this for like 2 minutes each, and that's when I'm feeling pretty good. So you're gonna do it the hard way. So you're gonna start with your legs up here and at about 90 degrees at the hips, arms straight overhead. First one is doing an opposite arm and leg. So you're straightening out the leg and the arm, and the whole time you want to be thinking about holding your belly button down to spine. So you're not actually touching the foot on the ground. It's just the lower you go, the harder it is with the foot. So if you can go not quite as hard, or you can keep the knee bent, is kind of a slightly easier modification. So this is the first version, is opposite arm and leg. The next version is now the same side. So same side, exactly the same. You really want to think about your core being engaged. Good. Okay, and then the third version, you're now going to be having your arms together, and so your arms are going overhead, up and down, and your legs are doing, with a bent knee now, a tap. So yeah, usually what I would say to start with this would be maybe start with like do 45 seconds of the exercise and then take a 30-second break, and so then do the next one for 45 seconds, take a 30-second break, and then the last one, and then you can build yourself up to where, like now I'll usually do about a minute and a half and take a 15-second break, and then a minute and a half, take a 15, and then a minute and a half, take a 15 is what I usually do. But like I said, you can build yourself up to where you do more and more. All right, we'll try
The key
that
with
one.
this one is with your low back, again, that you're not flattening it right into the floor or ground. You're trying to just start in this position where there's a little arch, and then when you lift up your feet, you maintain that. And then as you're lowering one leg at a time, you're not rotating at all through your hips. They're staying still.
What is it back? Is it all core or is
Well,
it
you're going to be using your hip flexor, but we're trying to focus more on like abdominals or what's stabilizing all of this. But you're definitely using your hip flexors. You can't not.